How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another Metroplex Bass Addicts video. This week's video is going to be a little bit different. We're actually going to do a quick recap of our, 2025 spring tournament season as a whole and kind of break down what we feel like went right this year, what we feel like went wrong, where we could have improved, and where we did well, and just kind of break down kind of tournament by tournament and in practice as well, um, everything that happened and analyze it from an, a perspective of looking at it at the season's end. So, y'all stay tuned. After the intro, we'll get into it.
What? Why? I think I like it.
So branching off a little bit from the script that we wrote for today's video, we're actually going to start with what went well for the season for us first, and that all started with the first tournament that we fished this year. It was on Squaw Creek, I believe. Tristan, correct me. Was it February?
January, late
January?
January.
Okay. So that, as you guys know, is a power plant lake, so it was a little bit warmer than all your other lakes at that time of year. Just a really fun tournament to fish, and I'll let Tristan talk a little bit about that one because it was kind of a little bit more his tournament.
Yeah, that one was fun. We really didn't even know we were going to fish that tournament until probably a week or two before. It was a smaller trail. I think it only had like 32 boats in it, but um, we went out to that tournament. We hadn't been there since December of 2023, I believe, for some other small tournament that we were fishing. So, and we've only been there a handful of times. Didn't really have a whole lot of history on the lake. So I think that actually helped us, especially a lake like that that gets so much pressure. We didn't really have anything to go off of. We didn't practice, like I said, we hadn't been there in a while, so we kind of just showed up and just fished our strengths and tried to force feed them into what we are most confident doing. Covered a lot of water and just junk fish. I think we ended up getting second in the tournament. We had a little over 15 pounds, and I think all of the five keepers we caught were on five different baits. I know we caught one on a chatterbait, one on a jig, one on a drop shot, and then I think one on a jerk bait that I may have scoped, and then one on a crankbait. So kind of just junk fished around main lake in pockets, offshore, shallow, deep. Did a little bit of everything and just fished the way that we like to. And that was a really great way to start the year with a second place finish, and really get some solid momentum to start the season.
Yeah, and then going into our second tournament, this was our first TTO event on Lake Tawakoni. As you guys all know, and probably saw from the video that we posted about it, the weather was just absolutely horrendous in that video. That tournament all kind of started with practice. Rolling in from the momentum from the first tournament, we decided we were striving to shoot for top five AOY this year in that trail to try to get some of the extra money that they're giving out starting last year. But so that was a really big goal for us. So we decided we needed to practice really hard on that tournament, and that kind of worked out for us really well. So initially, when we were practicing, we started just kind of hitting all of our history spots, what we did last year. That got us a check in that tournament around that same time of year, and it just was not firing like it should. We had just about no bites during practice. I don't think. I don't even think we really made a practice video from it. If we did, it was a few fish catches, but we had a spot that we had been eyeing for the past few weeks. I believe Tristan's told me the story how we've been in this little through this culvert before, and we didn't really catch anything at that point in time during the year, but we figured the few weeks leading up to it that the weather was going to be really bad, and that fish, kind of like how when we first started fishing these tournament trails on Lake Fork, if they were going to get into an area, they were just going to stay there. It was a really shallow, kind of muddy area. There was a little creek running into it, so a little bit dirtier water, warmed up a little bit faster. And we just figured there's one entrance, one exit to that place, and if they were back there, they were not going to move from it. So we started kind of scoping it out during the practice the few weeks before, and found that it was holding fish and the right kind of fish that we needed. So we decided to just kind of bank our tournament on that, and not necessarily bank, but with the weather we had, we figured we were going to hunker down in just that one particular area and just kind of work through it the entire day, just because it was monsoons out there. I think we speared probably at least one that I can remember, maybe two waves just getting to the spot. It was a few mile run from the nearest boat ramp, so it was sketchy just getting in there. When we first started, we hit a bridge, one of the bridge, I believe, Duck
Yep.
Cove Bridge.
Yeah.
And it was just not a fun time. We actually had to take shelter at another ramp right after we got out of there just because it was so bad. But we fished our strong suits in that tournament, um, and that was just kind of shallow flipping, throwing a
I think.
chatterbait, I think is what
Yeah.
we caught all of our fish
Yeah.
on.
I think all
Right?
five fish came on a fire craw jackhammer in that one.
Yes, and I will credit Tristan for that. He kind of forced me into throwing that a lot this year during the springtime. He's been throwing it for quite a few years now, and then finally turned me onto it, and it definitely helps during that time of year. I was a disbeliever at first. I was just like shad pattern, shad pattern, shad pattern, but I now see the advantages to having a crawfish pattern like a fire red or fire craw in your arsenal as well during that pre-spawn time of year. So that one went well for us as well. So we had a lot of solid momentum after those first two events.
Yeah, I think we got 17th in that one on
Yeah,
Tawakoni. Cashed a good check to start the year, so we were sitting well.
yeah, and it was just a really fun time. We had figured that that kind of transitions us into our kind of more bad parts of the year. Is there anything that you want to segue into kind of on the what went well part?
No, I mean, pretty much covered it.
Okay.
I mean, we have the yeah, we can kind of just move on from there.
Okay. So now on to the what went wrong part of the season. There's kind of two main things that segued into us not doing well. So first part, you're gonna kind of hear a little bit of excuses, and then the reason why we didn't do well after that. Not necessarily making excuses; they were just unfortunate parts that happened to us throughout the tournament season that just didn't allow us to fish as clean and what we necessarily wanted to do throughout the this last part of the season. And that first thing being boat troubles. So starting on TTO on Possum Kingdom, actually starting before that, my boat had been kind of like losing a little bit of power. I had been noticing like some top end speed loss, and as we were practicing for Possum Kingdom for TTO, we had actually been out there the 2, maybe even 3 weeks, all 3 of the weekends before that trail. We actually sacrificed fishing Lake Louisville, the TTO Kings of Cowtown qualifier, just to go practice on Possum Kingdom. It had been torrential downpours all throughout like the month before, and we knew that that water was not going to be the most fun thing in the world. So the cool thing was we actually got to watch the water kind of progressively get orange throughout the different parts of the lake. The first time we were out there, it was kind of like the top half of the lake. Then it got a little bit cloudier the weekend after, and then it was just like full orange come practice time. Um, but boat trouble wise, starting in that tournament, we noticed for the Friday practice before we noticed a significant loss in power. So it kind of started on the last run the weekend before. Didn't really think anything of it. I'd been messing with my jack plate a little bit, trying to gain that speed back, and that didn't really work out. But our first run, going to check our practice spot on for that tournament. The boat took probably 15 seconds to get on pad. It was just kind of riding at a 45-degree angle for that entire time. So at that point in time, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with this motor. I don't necessarily want to mess it up any more than what could possibly be messed up on it. So we really just decided to leave it. So we called our buddy at probably a 10 to 10 or 11, and
Yeah.
he lives about an hour away. Thank you, Gigi, for letting us use your boat, and we are sorry. We'll get into that here in a little bit, but we called him. He was like, "Yeah, come get my boat. I'll hang on to yours for what you need to do." So we ended up getting his boat. At probably we probably got back to the lake at what 3:30 ish.
Yeah, and we can only practice till 5.
Yeah, so it killed a majority of our practice day, and that was really the time when we first started our practice. We were kind of checking a little bit of history. We were going to use the rest of that practice day to go run new stuff because the entire lake was orange. You couldn't necessarily escape it, so there was no real history to actually run on that one. So we were got back at 3:30, and I for whatever reason, no, I forget to leave the plug. No, I forget to put the plug in, so I purposely do not take my plug out of my boat. I always just empty the bilge out when I get off, when I get back on the water, and that kind of saves us a step of what proceeded to happen. So when we got to the lake, we forgot to fill up that we forgot to put in the drain plug and ended up kind of filling up the entire back half of the boat with water. So that was not a fun experience. Tristan had flashbacks to him sinking his boat a few years ago, and that I wish we had gotten that full thing on video because that would have done numbers on YouTube. But so our practice kind of got screwed up on that, and practice on the week after on just kind of segue into that practice on the week after
Cedar
on
Creek.
Cedar Creek also kind of got messed up for us. So we were same kind of situation, borrowed a different buddy's boat since GG needed his for a tournament that he was going to be fishing. Um, about lunchtime, we ended up, Tristan, if you want to tell the story of why we were so close to a dock.
Yeah. After lunch, we got back out on the water. We stopped and got lunch, and then we got back out on the water, and um, I was throwing a crankbait down a line of seawalls, and the crankbait sailed a little too high, ended up in a chain link fence. Um, and there was some dogs in the backyard of this property, and so they were little dogs, but they were yappy, and they were trying to get my crankbait off the fence. And obviously, we didn't want to hook the dogs, so we were trying to get up there quickly to try and get the crankbait off the fence before we hooked someone's dog. And in the course of that, just kind of ran the trolling motor kind of into the seawall a little bit. Not really super hard, but
No, it was not
like
necessarily even the trolling motor. We also got a nice boost from a nearby wave. So you guys all know Cedar Creek. It was doing what Cedar Creek does, turn it into a washing machine, even in the back of coves.
yeah,
And it was just the right amount of momentum where it bumped us up. We like love tapped that seawall, but it love tapped it just the right way to where it severed about half the cables in the live scope transducer on our buddy's boat. So it was just completely toast after that. Probably took us about 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes to notice it before we even like looked down and was like, hey, what's wrong with this? And then I pulled up the trolling motor and we were just kind of cooked from that point. So after that lunchtime period, we spent the rest of the day actually rewiring and reinstalling that transducer. So we had to drive about 45 minutes to an hour out to
around
uh
Lake Palestine
yeah,
area.
to the nearest place that had a transducer. We didn't necessarily want to drive all the way back up to Garland at the Bass Pro Shop, so we decided to go there, and that kind of killed our entire practice day on that one as
Yeah,
well.
we drove out there and then rewired the transducer in the parking lot of the place that sold us the transducer, and then drove back. By the time we got back, I think there was like 30 minutes left of practice, so we didn't even get to finish practice.
Yeah. So what really killed us in these past two major tournaments was practice, and that also our Bass Champs tournament we ended up, or Tristan ended up catching, I want to say somewhere in the realm of 15 pounds, correct? 15?
Yeah, it was like 15 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. On that one, um,
This was the Bass Champs on Cedar Creek.
yes,
And
so that was about a month prior to all these boat issues, but that one was also weather troubled. We'll get into that in a second, but during that practice, we didn't necessarily fish too much new water. We kind of checked our old stuff as we like to do, and kind of bit us in the butt a little bit on that. Luckily, we had kind of from one of our spots that we like to fish, we had just kind of like moseyed a little bit further back into a creek, or not necessarily even a creek, but just kind of like a dock arm, whatever you
Yeah,
want to call it.
pocket.
And Tristan ended up landing on a bunch of fish that were spawning on that point. A lot of the times during, especially that Bass Champs tournament, I think we get a little bit too caught up with trying to find spawning fish on the main lake, when everyone else is in the back of coves catching spawning fish. So we just try to like push the spawn bite on colder water when we don't necessarily have to. There's plenty of fish spawning in the back of coves that we need to eventually go target, and that's really been our downfall over these past few years during that specific tournament. Other than that, weather was also just very crappy for us. As you guys fish all these tournaments, I think 3 out of 4 of the major tournaments we fished, it was not fun weather. That starting at the Tawakoni, going into the Bass Champs on Cedar Creek, going into Possum Kingdom. That one eventually, towards the later part of the day, got a little bit western, going back to weigh-in as well. That weather also being the rain, just making the entire lake blood Fanta orange, as I called it all throughout this season. Um, so with that crappy weather was us not being able to move around nearly as much as we wanted to. So as you guys might know, might not know, we are fishing out of an 18.5 foot boat with like a 150 horsepower on it. So nothing too terribly big. During the tournaments where that benefits us very well. But during a lot of the tournaments, we're actually at a severe disadvantage because on Cedar Creek, we're basically stuck to 2 arms. We can't travel any other part of the lake or else we will die. And we did kind of experience that on our Bass Champs tournament. It was nice going to our spot on the other end of the lake, but getting back, it probably added like an extra hour of us just trying not to die in like 4 foot swells out there. It was
Awful.
absolutely ridiculous. That other part of the weather, we've talked about wind a little bit, was rain. And I'll let Tristan kind of talk about us not necessarily adapting super well because of that rain in a few different instances.
Yeah, the rain was. I don't think I can remember a rainier year, honestly.
Yeah.
But
Hell, it's still raining now, and
yeah,
it's June. It
in June. Yeah,
should not be
but
this wet out here in Texas.
Possum Kingdom TTO in particular was the worst one. Obviously, the rain leading up to that was really, really bad, and the entire lake turned Fanta orange. Um, and we didn't. I mean, we have very limited experience on Possum Kingdom, so we really didn't know how that was going to affect things. We knew that it would probably make the offshore bite almost non-existent, especially in a lake like that where they're used to really clear water. And I do think for the most part we were right about that from what it seems like everyone was doing that did well and from our own experience. But we got uh, spun out trying to find any kind of clarity. Um, Apparently there was some in some places of the lake, not much different, but it just kind of ruined our confidence. Everywhere we went was orange, and we just couldn't get bit doing anything. And so the rain more so had probably a mental impact on us than it did the fish. I mean, it obviously had an impact on the fish, but just for us mentally, it really spun us out, particularly in that PK tournament. But also, I mean, Tawakoni, it was raining all day, and that was just frustrating. I know the Bass Champs on Cedar Creek, it rained in the morning as well. So the rain played a big impact on all the fisheries this year and really kind of eliminated big portions of the lake in a lot of tournaments, just blowing it out with mud, especially on Possum Kingdom.
And then last up on the rain is something that we learned actually on the most recent TTO Cedar Creek tournament was that thunder and lightning actually affect offshore fish in a brand new way for us. Um, just during that actual practice, what little we did actually get to get out there, we had actually found a decent amount of offshore fish. They weren't the biggest. They weren't like 6 or 7 pounders, but they were nice, solid like 3, 4 pound class fish. Enough to I think get us a check in that tournament if we had 15 pounds.
Yeah.
How we were trending, and Us talking with all of our friends and even Brandon Hollingshead and Jeremy Lambert in the parking lot, they had mentioned something as well that we didn't necessarily know that we needed to adapt to. So after, if you guys were out there, it thunderstormed. We probably had like a hour-ish long, just wild thunderstorm blow in the night before practice at probably 10 or 11 o'clock that Friday night. It was, I think there was hail. It was, I
It was,
think,
yeah.
like, yeah, golf ball-ish sized hail that hit us, as well as just really big thunder and lightning in the area. And talking with everyone after that, all of the offshore fish our friends had as well, just all seemingly disappeared. That I can't necessarily say that's something that we've experienced too many times, especially with having offshore fish located, just because we're not used to having rain at this point in time during the year. So it's not something that we've, in our young fishing careers, has really affected us too terribly much. But everyone that we talked to said that their offshore fish had disappeared on them and that they went shallow after that. And shallow necessarily on that lake is probably still like 7-ish feet, but they were under docks and not necessarily on the offshore rock piles that or brush piles that everyone had actually located them on.
Yeah, it was a pretty distinct change. Um, we ended up finding it, but we found it too late. We spent a good portion of the day offshore. We did catch two of our keepers offshore, but they were really small as compared to like 3 and 4 pounders the day before.
They
And
had
then we
shrunk by
finally,
like 1 or 2 pounds on
yeah,
us on that same exact spot.
when we finally went back shallow, because we started shallow and caught two pretty early, but that's fairly normal for a post spawn tournament.
Yeah,
But when we went back shallow later in the day, I ended up catching a 7 pounder at like 1 p.m. in like 3 feet of water. And that kind of clued us in. So we kind of tried to stick it out shallow the rest of the day. But at that point, it was kind of too late in the day and we just didn't have enough time to rally. So we just kind of missed the mark on that. I think we missed a check by, I think it was like 10 spots, maybe like 2 pounds. It was
yeah,
kind of heartbreaking, but you live and you learn. We had talked to some buddies, like Ian said, they had said that they've seen that before or that they've heard professional anglers talk about that before, and that was just something we didn't even think about. So now we know for next time, but unfortunately, we learned that lesson just a tad bit too late.
yeah. Other than that, to wrap it up on back to one went well, we did have a relatively positive attitude towards the year, and we were also just locked in during our tournaments because we had such terrible practices. We knew we needed to focus and really strive to do our best fishing during the tournament days, and just kind of fish the moment and see what happened. And kind of worked out for us. Kind of didn't learn quite a few lessons this year on what to do, what not to do on the boat side of things as well as the fishing side of things. But
For sure.
uh, we're about halfway through the year right now. It's 6/16 as we're filming this. This will probably be put out on the Thursday of this week. We are not done with tournaments. We still have quite a few left over. I'm not sure, Tristan, how much of that did you cover in last week's video? It did
Not too
only
much.
it did only get like 100 views, so thanks for you guys that did actually watch it.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
geez.
but what we kind of have coming up, I think Tristan's out of town this next weekend. I'm going to be up in the Broken Bow area filming, uh, not necessarily filming with my girlfriend, but filming some fishing content up there. Me and Tristan were fishing the river last year and stumbled across an 8 pounder in one of the parts of the river, and she was massive. So I'm going to go try to target that. Potentially even bring a trout swim bait with me. I think that would be a fun thing. I'm not necessarily sure what the boat situation looks like for that yet. If it's fixed in time, I might be bringing the bass boat up to Broken Bow. We'll just have to see about that. After that, we had I'd been talking with Mike McFarland, who is a guide out on Lake Fork really early on this year, and just kind of got into contact with him. He had some special pricing on some guides trips. So at the end of this month, the 28th, I believe it is,
Yeah.
me and Tristan are actually going to be out there with him. Just have him teach us a little bit of offshore stuff because that's definitely one of our weaker points. Wouldn't you say on that, Tristan?
Summertime offshore fishing, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Wintertime we got that one pretty down. All you do is go find rock piles on that one.
Rock
And
piles and road beds.
yeah, just kind of throw a drop shot on those. But summertime brush piles, something that we don't have a whole lot of experience on. Just wanted to get a professional's help and just kind of help expand our fishing game a little bit during this time of year. So we're going to be doing that, and then I believe after that we got 4th of July. The week after, ironically, we scheduled this tournament or this guide trip a lot more before it, but there's a smaller trail. I believe, Tristan,
North
do you know
Texas
the
Bass Opens. North Texas.
and North Texas Bass Opens. They're actually going to be doing a tournament on Fork out there, um,
12.
the July 12th. So if you guys are interested in that, please check them out or hit probably Tristan up on Terrible I Responding on social media and
On
just
Facebook, just look up North Texas Bass Opens on Facebook.
yeah, and get the information for that. But that is kind of all we have planned right now. Um, had an opportunity on potentially a boat situation for the start of next year, so we need to discuss that a little bit. But other than that, we're still planning on doing the John Boat series if that's something you guys are interested in, something that we've wanted to do. When we first started out fishing, we had a little 12-foot John boat that I kind of tricked out into a bass boat with a front foot pedal trolling motor, little motor on the back that eventually ended up crapping out on me. But just kind of like the first bass boat setup that you can think about for young broke high schoolers
Yeah.
and middle. Not no, not
High school and
necessarily middle
college, high
school,
school
just
and college.
high school, college.
Yeah.
So that was kind of our introductory into boats, graphs, offshore fishing, things like that. And we've just kind of been missing that hole in our life.
Yeah.
And so
We basically want to take it back to grassroots. We started fishing from the bank when we were kids, and then that progressed into kayaks, and then that progressed into the John boat, and then the bass boats. And we've kind of missed small water adventures on the kayaks and the bass boats, and being able to get into rivers and creeks and streams and ponds and exploit those. So we're thinking about, we're going to do a John boat series, try to build that out, and try to get back to our roots and fish some of those small water areas and kind of get on some of those adventures for you guys.
yeah, show you the ponds that we grew up fishing and how we kind of approached them then, maybe how we approach them now as well as explore a few other places within the DFW area. I know there's part of a river that you can get into right next to where I work at that I've been eyeing for a few years, as well as a few ponds around that area that are just about only accessible from boat that look really nice.
And then also
So
places like Broken Bow and the Blue River and
yeah,
new areas like that. So
yeah, what kind of kick-started that a little bit is that 8-pounder that we saw on Broken Bow last year. We were in our buddy's kind of older John boat, wasn't really outfitted well for us to catch that fish in. Now that we know it's there, where those fish kind of hangs out. I think we saw what like a 25 pound bag
easily.
um, just sitting in those trees, and that would just be a really cool video to do that, as well as I know there's big deep smallies in that part of the river, as well as trout. So it could be a really fun mixed bag kind of video. Um, but yeah, other than that, that's kind of about it for the video, I think. Tristan, do you have anything wrap up wise to say?
That's it. I mean, we
Yeah,
appreciate y'all watching, appreciate y'all staying tuned and sticking with us. And we got more actual fishing content coming soon. So,
yeah. Thank you guys. Please make sure to like, follow, subscribe.
I got the bread and I
See you on
got
the
the
next one.
juice. I got some dogs and I let them loose. Bring in the storm, but this ain't the Zeus. Walk in the skies, but this ain't the loop. This ain't the cruise. We ain't the same, you ain't have a clue. I'm in the game and untouchable. Cause I got the flame and this is the proof. Loading my tote, I still want all the smoke. We ain't talking about jokes, we just talking about more. I see all of my goals and it's looking like gold. I ain't asking for hope, cause I know that it's show. Now you seeing me blow.